We thank the Honourable Minister for taking the time out, joining us here for this momentous occasion. And we are waiting to hear from her. But first, ladies and gentlemen, I'd like to request the Honourable Minister to kindly unveil the special edition of Business Standard on the occasion of us stepping into our 50th year. And also, the mast has a new logo on it, so all of that coming way of our readers. Ma'am, please do the honours. Congratulations, a special commemorative edition of Business Standard unveiled by Honourable Minister Srimati Nirmala Sitharaman. Thank you, Honourable Minister. Ladies and gentlemen, we would now like to play for you a special film celebrating 50 glorious years of Business Standard. Attention on the screen. And once the film is played, I'd request the Honourable Editor to please welcome Honourable Minister in our midst.
Thank you, Gitika, and good afternoon, everybody. On behalf of Business Standard, let me extend a very warm welcome to the Honourable Union Finance Minister, Srimati Nirmala Sitharaman, on this opening day of Business Standard Manthan. Just a prelude, ma'am, since this is the afternoon session. Starting this year, we are embarking on a year-long journey of celebrating 50 years of Business Standard, which is one of India's most respected business dailies. We started life on this day, March 27th in 1975, and we like to tell ourselves perhaps that was the only good thing that happened on that fateful year. It was initially published from Kolkata, then it was called Calcutta, with a cover price of 40 paisa. Business Standard is now 13 edition strong national brand and commands the highest cover price amongst all newspapers in the country, again a lucky rupees 13. To mark this occasion, we are holding this two-day annual summit for dissecting business and economic thoughts. This national summit of thought leaders, christened as Manthan, is themed around the topic, A Developed India by 2047, the roadmap. We hope Manthan will provide a forum to policymakers, government decision makers, and industry leaders to deliberate on major economic, business, and strategic policy options and challenges that face the Indian economy and the many sectors that have potential to drive our growth. Honorable Finance Minister, we are indeed grateful for you to agreeing to be here with us today, despite your super busy schedule. It's a very busy election season and steering the economy in meeting the unprecedented challenge of policy making in the post-COVID, post-Ukraine, Russia, and Israel-Gaza world. In the middle of all this, Srimati Sitharaman's presence in the North Bloc has been reassuring. Her calm disposition is just one of the many reasons for that. The entire team at the Finance Ministry, under your leadership, ma'am, deserves compliments for keeping India an oasis of economic and financial stability among the chaos all around. Deficit is being reduced. In fact, there is an over-delivery here without compromising on the quality of government expenditure. As one of our columnists very simply puts it, and I quote, in a world where much of the West is struggling with deficit and debt, India is clearly saying that we can consolidate the fiscal and still grow at 7 to 8%, unquote. Srimati Sitharaman's track record as a formidable policymaker in the government, an able communicator, and a rare ability to be a good listener has endeared her to everybody. Thank you so much, Honorable Minister, for agreeing to be with us today. Thank you. May I now invite the Honorable Finance Minister to please deliver your keenly awaited keynote address. A round of applause, please. Thank you.
Good afternoon, and what a wonderful feeling it should be for a newspaper, particularly that which is pink in color, to celebrate 50th, entry into the 50th year. I wish Business Standard all the very best and many more 50 years to come. India needs to have good and comprehensive reportage on matters economic. I would say this even as India is blessed with a few newspapers which are dedicated business newspapers, and the regular white newspapers also have more than a page dedicated to writing on the economy. So there's no dearth of information on the economy. But what I would look at, or what I would look for, is more and more specialized papers, or more and more pages of specialized papers such as Business Standard, so that a spectrum of view on different issues affecting the economy or which are important for the economy or on a regular basis taken up, conversations are built on it, and informed pieces, informed writings find a good place. So in that context, even with a few papers, I would think more space has to be given, not so much nowadays for print newspapers, but at least in the digital media. So I think 50 years of your experience would have seen how Indian economy has moved, in fact, passed by several milestones, some of which are very, very significant. So I think you would be very well placed to look at 2047 in all its vast canvas, which is what the Honorable Prime Minister Narendra Modi is looking at, pitching before us, and making sure that with the confidence that we have today in India, each one of us will be dedicated to getting there, getting to the 2047 of our dreams, 2047, which Indian youth aspire to reach. Is it important because it's a dream which has been placed before us by the Prime Minister? But is it not an important dream that all of us will love to reach, attain, because it is that which is the dream of our youth? It is that which is going to hold the hope for India for the next 25 years. So even as you're moving towards completing your 50th year by 2025, with just another 23, 24 years to go when you will touch 75 yourselves, India at 100, Business Standard at 75, should see a developed India where virtues of a developed economy can be realized even in India. And why do we think it is possible to attain? Where are we today? And what kind of efforts have been taken that we are today able to say it is possible for us to reach there without any hesitations? And that is where I think I'll spend about 5-10 minutes explaining all that, and later, of course, you're going to have a chat with me. Just look at the parameters which are important for us to take on board. They are parameters which form a basis on which we can stand and speak. And they may be short-term parameters, but short-term parameters which are before us even after a debilitating COVID, which literally affected every country in the world. India was not unique to it. So 8% growth, 3 continuous quarters, ending the third quarter of 23-24, with other parameters all working towards giving us the confidence that we'll be able to sustain good growth. Now, I know I'm talking on a media platform. I'm also conscious that every line is going to be, oh, the FM said this, and tomorrow. I'm not saying whether it is 8% or 7.9%, but the fact remains that 8% over 3 quarters, and looking at a good sustainable momentum for growth itself is a good plank to stand on. And even as we are the fastest growing economy, to say, all right, we have the confidence now, what are the other parameters we should take on board? And therefore, if that is the first one on which I want to speak, I also want to highlight the path which has been laid out before us, as though it's not as though it has been laid before us without a reason, but the emphasis are on 4 I's in laying that path before us. What are those 4 I's? I've mentioned this earlier once, but it is important to say that now because that's going to be the pathway with which we want to give a picture based on what has been delivered in the last 10 years, and a picture where economists and journalists like you will be very clear that this dream is not just castle in the air. It has ground. It has reason to be trusted because that path is a steady, concrete path to lead us towards that dream. So the 4 I's are investment, infrastructure. I would put the infrastructure first if you want. Infrastructure, the second being investment, third being innovation, and the fourth, inclusiveness. So if these are the 4 with which the pathway to achieving the goal of 2047, developed India, the ripple effect which can be caused by each one of these 4 can give us the mass to have that strength to realize this dream. We could very happily say that these are the 4 I's on which we are placing the emphasis, but record of this government will tell you that we believe in all the 4 I's. Look at the way from 1.88 lakh crores in 2014-15, the infrastructure or the capital expenditure allocation in the budget, to where it has reached today. It is 11 lakh crore in this budget, which is 24-25. I'm not talking about the vote on account. A growth of 433% in these last 10 years. So we believe that one of the I's is very important because that's what is going to give you the multiplier effect. That's what is going to have immediate ripples because most of the in-situ constructions which happen or the infrastructure which is being created will bear multiple results. So that is a very important factor. Now, as a result, we are able to crowd in private capital. We're also able to see that the gross fixed capital formation is also showing tangible improvement. Now, at cost and constant price, what we have registered in this year, 24, is 10.2% growth in the gross fixed capital formation. So these are very important indicators based on which I think it is possible for us to say, sustain this, move on this very ground, you are sure to reach the objective or the dream that you have before you, a developed India by 2047. Did we leave the states to fend for themselves in our desire to build infrastructure, in our desire to have increased it by 433%, the infrastructure spend? Did we leave the states to fend for themselves? No, we did not. The scheme for special assistance for states on capital expenditure, literally between 2020 and 2021, from then to now, has seen 2 lakh crores already dispersed to the states. And this budget, which is a vote on account, talking about 24-25, has also allocated 1.3 lakh crore to the states. So clearly, 3.3 lakh crores to the states, interest-free for 50 years, just to make sure that they will also spend on capital items, thereby creating that kind of an asset which will be helpful in the future, is a firm commitment towards the federal structure and ensuring that the growth is all across the board rather than a few states having big projects reaping the benefit. From this expenditure, or from this allocation given to the states, the ICRA suggests that about 29% more money will be spent in the states for capex because they are now given this additional cushion by the central government. Retail inflation is another factor. Will that deter our speed? Will that be a big drag on us? I think I want to very clearly put before you, February 2024, the retail inflation eased to a 4-month low. That may not be a good enough long period, but the core inflation is at 3.3%, and it is the lowest since 2012. So literally a 12-year low in the core inflation. External sector, there are several things that one can speak about: the merchandise export, the service exports. I'm not getting into details here, but the reforms undertaken between 2014 and 19, big and small, and the reforms even during COVID, despite COVID, underlines two important things. One, the commitment of this government in carrying out reforms. Come what may, we will carry on this momentum, as Prime Minister says, even in the third term after getting elected again. So the momentum on reforms will not be relented at all. It will carry on. But the other factor is, because we had taken up these reforms, today we see that the recovery from COVID, and after that, having the growth that we, in fact, I can say, which is the envy of many of the countries outside of India, fastest growing economy with all cylinders really firing out. You find, I think it's important that we recognize the role of reforms which were undertaken earlier during 2014-19 and also during the COVID period. So I just want to underline the fact that sustaining the momentum on reforms is a very important factor based on which you can have the confidence, we have the confidence, to be able to reach 2047 with the kind of goals which we wish to have. The other indicators of the Indian macroeconomic picture are the external debt position, foreign exchange reserves, current account deficit level, and also the portfolio investments. They're all in comfortable position. So you can stand on this plank and say India has the confidence to set this goal for 2047, and with the 4 I's, we are laying the path towards reaching 2047 for that destination which we want to reach as a developed country. There is also buoyancy in the revenue collection. I've always noticed that Business Standard particularly is keen on picking up information on revenue collections. Any paper would be. But I've found that most often you're the first to report on it, whilst the rest would come probably 24 hours later. So I want to sort of put my assumption forward: revenue buoyancies of extra interest for Business Standard, and revenue collection supported by very prudent expenditure management has resulted in us having the strength to manage our fiscal deficit better. As a result, again, better financial management, putting out your best foot forward in making sure that your commitment given for the glide path, the honoring of the glide path, which was given during COVID, just as we were coming out of it, is being fully kept intact. We shall keep that intact, and the honoring of it will continue. If we have to look at the 4 I's and the other strengths that the Indian economy has, so that we know that we are going on the right path, I would put the digital transformation of India as the topmost on the agenda. It is because of the way in which the scaling up of the digital renaissance, if I can say that, has actually had an impact on so many different sections of our society. Not just fintech, not just payment revolution, but the way in which education, the way in which health services are being rendered, and the way in which governments today see the virtue of using digital methods of keeping a monitor on the economy in the states, and also in extending services to the people. Digital revolution actually has placed India much ahead of so many different countries. In fact, many of them participating during the G20 conference desire to understand what this India stack is all about. And some of the bricks which go into making that stack were interesting for them, and they've now engaged with us for a couple of months so that they can see which of them is going to be useful for them, relevant for them, for immediate purpose. So we are happily engaging with them because we think there's big virtue for developing countries, for emerging markets, to build on this strength. Digital, having gone down to the common man and enabling a lot more buying and selling, if I can put it that way, is the foundation on which the economy can plan for a lot of things. But even more important is the fact that the demographic dividend is something which we talk about. Poverty removal in some sections, multi-dimensional poverty being addressed in some case. You can see that the number of those who come under the middle class is growing rapidly. That's obviously going to have a bearing on consumption itself. So, middle class, just see the numbers which are before us. By the year 2030, you're going to have 70 crores of them in the middle class. So businesses, investments which are coming into this country are keeping that number in mind, that this is the middle class which is going to have the purchasing power, and therefore the market exists here for very many of these goods, which till today, Indian market was not seen as an attractive market because the buying capacity of your middle class wasn't big enough, or the middle class was not big enough itself. So today your numbers are absolutely stunning. 70 crores by 2030 and 100 crores by 2047 is a significant trigger for people who want to plan their business and also to expand on business to take India forward. The IMF estimates that India's contribution to global growth will be in the range of 18% between 2023 and 2028. S&P, the Standard & Poor Global Marketing Intelligence, says the Indian consumer market will likely double by 2031, ties up with the middle class number that I was telling you about. Consumer spending on food is estimated to rise to $1.4 trillion by 2031 again. And spending on financial services will climb to $670 billion from $280 billion, which is today. So that kind of an opportunity is something which you can't see in any other part of the world. And therefore, I think India stands at a cusp where this dream is not going to be just a dream, it is a realizable dream. And the government is doing everything to make sure that it continues with the reform. In real time, it has to be kept alive. Next generation is what you can say each time talking about what are you going to do next for reforms. There are second and third generation are all over and done with. You're now looking at whatever comes next, and that has got to go on. There is no attaining a goal there. So reforms will have to be continued. I think what is important is equally the political continuity. Unless you are seeing a government with substantial support and getting the mandate from the people, which has the dedication and commitment to come up with major reforms, major decisions, and no withering away the time in having the coalition work together and some kind of a dharma to be practiced, none of that. And a predictable and stable environment, predictable and stable taxation structure. All this matters. And that is what we've shown in the last 10 years. And that is what I think we'll be showing in the next term as well. And therefore laying the foundation to take India forward. Compare the position 2014 to today. What was twin balance sheet problem? Today is a twin balance sheet advantage. The RBI itself calls it a twin balance sheet advantage. So we need to take steps to take India forward, capitalizing on all these advantages, and it is not an unrealizable dream. We owe it to the next generation. The youth of India want to see an India which can meet their aspirations, and they don't need to leave the shore to realize their dream elsewhere with all the skills and capacities that they have. So thank you very much for giving me this opportunity.
Thank you, Finance Minister, for your encouragement and such an incisive, high-quality address. In fact, so many things are reassuring in your lecture, right from how political stability dovetails into economic growth and economic stability, on better financial management, not just the center, but the states as well. You gave us the 4 I's of infrastructure, investment, innovation, and inclusiveness. And we'll also remember what you told us as media people, that there is no dearth of information. What is lacking and maybe needed more of is specialized coverage to reflect a spectrum of views. Thank you so much for such a lovely lecture once again. Now, may I now invite my colleague and editorial director of Business Standard, Mr. Ashok Bhattacharya, to please come up on stage and start the fireside chat with the Honorable Finance Minister. Thank you so much. AKB, all to you.
Thank you, Sailesh. Thank you, ma'am. We have limited time, so we'll let you go at 3:45, but maybe 5 minutes here and there will. I can't resist asking this question to you. It maybe slightly personal. How do you unwind? I mean, you know, you are always. No, you. I mean, where is the mic here?
That's fine. I'll go there.
No, you
That's
should
fine.
not. No, please don't. This is your mic.
No, that's all right. I think she's getting it.
Yeah. How do you unwind?
Listen to a lot of music.
Oh, wonderful.
Read a lot of books.
Okay, wonderful. Yeah. 5 years ago, when you became Independent India's first full-fledged woman finance minister, and those 5 years were really rocky in the sense that so many things happened in one 5-year tenure. Looking back, is there anything that comes to your mind which you thought you could have done, either differently or something new, or something that you did not do and wish that they needed to be taken up in the coming years?
My answer may not impress a journalist.
No, but doesn't matter.
I strongly believe things happen around you, to you. You are in a place where you're going to have to do something. You're only a nimitta.
Okay.
And I don't think, therefore, I have any reason to think I would have done it differently. I was there to do it the way I was expected to do by some kind of a force. So I just carried on without much of a passion.
Okay, fine. Yeah. Anything in your mind which you wish should be taken up in the next 5 years?
Well, definitely a lot of things. And one of that is, on matters economy. I don't know whether it is possible. Again, it's a wish list that I have. In matters economy, center-state differences should not arise on the grounds of politics. We should look at Indian economy.
Yeah.
And unless the Indian economy, after all, it's not separate for central government, the economy is not different for different state governments. Everything put together is Indian economy. And many things that the government of India can speak on, it does because it works together with the state. For instance, central government doesn't have one piece of land. The union territories are there, but majority it is in the states. 99% is with the states. So whatever it does with the states on board. And when systems are so transparently laid out, when the rule book is the Finance Commission, which is before you, and it is there for everyone to see, no point in wasting time talking or bickering on it. Go check the facts. If it's fine, get along, work together. Spending time bickering about it doesn't help, whereas spend time with the Finance Commission to make sure that you're able to get the arguments put forward and get appreciated by the Commission members. Because all that is very important. That's one thing. Second, reforms cannot be anywhere, only the central government's domain. Responsibility to have a better system functioning, better system of governance, and better ease of doing business for the businesses should also be with the states, should also be with the third layer of India's elected democracy. Panchayats, urban local bodies. So it should now become a narrative which I think the media has a very big role to play. The consciousness that reform is not alien to the local bodies or the panchayats will have to be completely debunked. We have to say eventually, when businesses set up their business, they come down to the panchayat level. Can you be so indifferent or blind or completely opaque to what means ease of doing business, what it is to have reforms? So that is the next big thing I would like to focus on.
So are you suggesting something like the GST Council at a reform level?
Well, the GST Council as regards taxation matters.
Yeah, but about reforms?
Overall governance, overall decision making, the extent to which people will have to be facilitated to be simply getting there, get their approval and get doing their business. It cannot be India of 1960s or 70s, but yet we want the benefits of reform to go to every, just not workable. So we need to have that taken down.
An institutional solution is a way out? Institutional mechanism?
Institutional mechanism, mindset mechanism. Okay. I think a lot of people will have to be told, for who, pray, are you such sticky, round hole, square peg?
Yeah, round hole.
Doesn't work.
In the last few months, we heard a lot about many states, since you're talking about states, going back to the old pension system. And then there was a committee also set up. We don't get to hear those pension-related state issues anymore, although the issues are very much alive. What is the way forward? How do you think this pension issue can be resolved?
No, that is a very sensitive issue and a right thing that you're raising it.
Yeah.
The committee has met up with almost all stakeholders, with the states, with the center, and so on. So it is for the committee now to come up with its recommendation. We'll have to look at it. But the fact remains that states, or anybody for that matter, should not take a call, a knee-jerk call in these matters. You want to take a call, take a considered call. I'm not saying you should not take a call which is different from others. But knee-jerk, eve of your election, or something which you want to keep the attention of people taken away from something towards this, a temptation, has serious implication on states' finances as much as on the center's finances. So I would invite people who would want to have a diametrically different view also to go about consulting, talking, have an open debate, rather than say, oh, I've taken a call, come what may, I'm doing this. Cannot help, it's not your money.
A lot of people say that there is a political solution to it. Change the government as you did in Chhattisgarh, you did it in Rajasthan, and a new government comes with a different belief, doesn't believe in the old pension system, goes in for the new pension system.
Well, it won't be just on the pension, right? The mindset will have to change on many other things as well.
Yeah. Ma'am, 2-3 years ago, you started the initiative on tariff reforms, in a sense that you went in for exemptions, removal of the exemptions, which also effectively meant tariffs went up. In some cases, tariffs did come down. Is there any sense that we can get from you that have actually tariffs gone up? Are you concerned about it? And what is the effective tariff rate right now? Are you worried? Some segments of industries seem to get worried about higher tariffs because it does work against domestic production competitively and efficiently. What are your thoughts on it?
Well, we did take a very clear path about tariff and levels of tariff. Atmanirbhar Bharat is not a regressive step. It's a step to make sure that where you have capacities, where there is potential, we need to have our own manufacturing supported. After all, in India, didn't we some decades ago, take such a step towards automobile? And that resulted in India becoming, at least in some segments, self-reliant on automobile. Today, we are producing and exporting as well. So such, support, inclusive of tariff decisions, do help industry to grow within the country, where you have the capacity, where people are willing to invest, and where there is potential. So the decision on Atmanirbhar Bharat based decisions on tariff are driven by the fact that where we think we have the capacity, at least for a few years, we cannot afford to have cheap imports coming and not even allowing that sector to sprout and grow. So that is one thumb rule we adopted. The other is, if cheap imports are detrimental to many of those who have already been here for a long time, but are on the verge of getting lost because or getting flooded because of cheap imports, should we or should we not give them a succor? It's not forever. But if your production is not qualitatively good or cost competitive, obviously you'll have to face the music. An artificial protection creating inefficiencies can't be supported. And we are conscious of that. So there are calibrations being done in this policy, keeping India's capacities where you can grow, where you can become more efficient. We do want to give this protection, but for some time. It's not a permanent, shut the door off, we will grow, but we may take 50 years to grow. That's not the case.
That's not a permanent stance. Yeah. I will be failing in my duty if I don't ask you about this question about the ownership pattern of public sector entities. 1991 onwards, you saw disinvestment, then you saw a phase of many privatizations between 1999 and 2003. And then there was a long pause, and then there was one privatization of Air India in 2020 or 2019. We haven't seen any such thing. What is your perspective on what should be the ideal approach to change in the public sector ownership management or structure of management? How do you see this?
I want you to recognize the fact that if there is a government which made it a policy statement on privatization, a policy statement on where private sector will be allowed or will not be allowed, meaning the policy said you are allowed everywhere. A policy statement which said clearly, public sector will be present only in core strategic areas, and they were defined. So we are bound by that policy.
And that policy is in force.
Yes, it was passed in the parliament. As part of the budget speech, it came up, and as part of the finance bill, it was passed. So we adhere to that. We believe in that.
So if privatization is not happening, we should not.
It could also be the timing. After all, after 2020, the way in which changes happened in the market, I mean, I take the liberty to explain it a bit longer. I don't want any more implications being drawn or inferred on this.
Okay.
LIC IPO. It was in that path that we went forward. And within a few weeks, people started hitting back, saying, you saw, you hurriedly came into the market for an IPO, the value is far less. You can't have it every way you want. We do look at the opportune moment, keeping in consideration that it cannot also send a message to the stock market that the government is there throwing, every rag that it has. No. Equally, even if it is going to take time, we are making sure that the valuation of these companies are improved, even before we take them to the market. So we are spending time, delaying time, if you would want to perceive it like that. We are not delaying time doing nothing. If we have not brought them onto the market yet, the valuation of that company is being very closely monitored. If anything, it is being improved.
There have been attempts by your government on factor market reforms on both land and labor, and there is also reforms that were attempted on agriculture. What is the current outlook on both land, labor, agriculture reforms going forward, particularly in light of some comments coming from different sources that probably these are issues that can be settled at the state level? So can you give us some clarity on, are you giving the responsibility of reforms in these areas, land, labor, and agriculture, to the states? Because the labor code is yet to be notified by the center. States, not all states have agreed to it. Land reform is in a kind of a cold. So what is your perspective?
Well, first of all, I'm not giving it to states. The states and the center under the constitution share the responsibility anyway. So we'll be happy even if the states want to come and do something. We are not palming it off. We are there. We will continue to do all that it takes to do things in the name of reform, having factor reforms particularly.
Okay.
But we also want the states, because after all, for other things, you're often pulled up saying, oh, well, you take up things even in those areas which are not with you, meaning solely with you. It's also with us. So we love to see the states also come on board. Our momentum on the reforms will continue.
Okay, thank you. I'm getting frantic messages from that you have to go somewhere. I'm very sorry. You still tolerated Manthan.
Again, a media event. I don't want them to think that.
Would you take?
You care nothing for us. You were there.
Would you take a question or two? Yeah, sure. Madam Minister has agreed to take only 2 questions. So, okay, there are too many. Okay, go ahead, young man. Ask a question and identify yourself. Yeah, go ahead. Yeah. Take the mic. Yeah.
Good afternoon, ma'am. I'm Akanksha. And my question to you is that being a youth, you are inspiration to not only myself, but a lot of young females. But I want to know what inspires you? What drives you?
A lot of people, when I was young, I had a lot of people who impressed me, who I would want to learn from. So, and as you grow older in your age, you'll also have newer icons who can come into the picture. So it's an evolution. I think every one of us will keep doing that to ourselves. So it is not just one person always. It is one person plus several more. I'm sure you'll have your own choices.
Thank you.
This is the final question.
I'm Arvind Tiwari. I want to know from you what is deterring the central government to go for education and health to make it a state subject, because there is the main root cause which is causing the differences and discord in different systems, the total system, and which is the major cause of corruption also. I'm making this statement. Education and health.
I think he's talking about education and health being focus area.
No, let me. What I'm saying is education and health is the prerequisite for any nation to grow. And the disparity in education system and health benefits to all. It is the major cause of corruption. What is deterring the central government, especially the finance ministry, to allocate more funds to this so that it becomes a state subject?
No, it is already partly with the state and partly with the center, both health and education. Giving more money alone, then going by the observation that you have put forth, that there's a lot of corruption. Putting money alone is not going to solve this problem. We need to give money, we need to support them, but the fact remains, systems have to become a lot more transparent, both in center and state. And that is where the reforms will have to be taken further, even with the states. Particularly for education and health, you can't afford to have money pilfered. I would like to just take this opportunity to say, when we insisted on having DBT, direct benefit transfer, there was a lot of resistance from the states saying, no, you don't do that, send that money as always to the states and we will give it to the identified beneficiaries. We didn't go along with that. We insisted that you get the Aadhaar-enabled identity of the beneficiary and money will go into their accounts. I'm happy to say that Government of India has saved 3 lakh crores because of DBT. Now, where does that money go? The money saved from this is not going to my pocket. It's not going into PM's pocket. It'll again be plowed into education and health. So if we are able to make systems transparent, both at the center and state, and be accountable for what we are doing, more money will automatically come. Look at the savings that we've got. That will, after all, go towards improving systems. So that is the way forward, I would think.
I think, thank you very much, ma'am. You have been very, very tolerant and you have tolerated our long thing, is exceeded our time. Once again, my thanks to you, and please give her a big hand. She's been very tolerant, and thank you very much.
Resounding applause, please, for the Honorable Union Minister for sparing her time and giving us those extra minutes. Thank you very, very, very much, ma'am.